Hi, my friend, it's Pat Sloan here, and this is my next giveaway quilt. Ta-da! I felt like I needed to find a springy, light, quilt that would be one of the giveaways when I hit 95,000 subscribers. So that's less than 3,000 that we need, and then this quilt will go to somebody. And as we go along here, this journey to 95,000, I will tell you a little bit more about this quilt, but for today I'm just going to let it sit here so that you can take a look at it. It's called Meadow Breeze, and it was published in one of my books. So there you go. You can just enjoy it as a little backdrop. So a couple of fun things. One is our Scavenger Hunt Day. So today for Scavenger Hunt, if you would share in the group your sewing basket, and share the one that you travel with. Like you pick it up, you take it here, you take it there. You're going to take it, sit in the living room, take it over to the family room, take it to the kitchen, take it on in the car. What is your travel sewing basket, tote bag, whatever it look like. So share that over in a community group, Quilt Along with Pat Sloan. It is also Celebrate Grandma Day and Celebrate Women and Girls in Science. I'm a science girl. I guess you could call me one because my degree is in computer science. But I don't know if that makes me a science girl. I can write code, and I can think logically. But share today also if you have a quilt made by your grandma or your great-grandma. Heck, if you're a grandma and you made a quilt, share it. No. Let's just go with your grandma, your great-grandma. Mine don't have any quilts, so I don't have anything to share for today, but I look forward to seeing yours. Okay, we have, let's see, I want to be sure I get all of this in. All right, good. So our main thing we're going to talk about today is the Harrisonburg Quilt Along, the fabric collection and placement of it in the quilt. That is the focus of the rest of the video for today, except Norm and Nanette's big adventure. They have just arrived. They just flew in. Here they are. Norm tells me they need to do laundry again. They just come here to do laundry. What is that? So here they are, Norm and Nanette, back from their honeymoon. So they went with Becky Thompson of Power Tools with Threads. My friend Becky told me she was going on a quilting cruise. She was teaching on back-to-back quilting cruises, and they just fit perfectly in her suitcase. She made them passports with their little pictures inside. Look at that. These cracked me up. Baby Bob, as you know, did not go along. Baby Bob has now gone on to visit one of his other aunts, and these two will be meeting him there. But today we get to see what they did with Becky on her Caribbean cruise. Let's take a look. First thing was to get through the TSA checkout. So here they are coming out of the conveyor belt. They have their passports all ready to go, and of course their photos on the other side. Now here we go. Becky says they got the honeymoon suite. So they're right by the pool. Look at that. Just gorgeous. They're waiting to get on the ship. So cute. And here they are hanging out outside at the pool. What was everybody thinking, huh? Look at those gnomes there. They don't even have bathing suits on. They're just sitting there in their clothes. So they got to St. Martin, and they are on a sew and sail cruise with Becky at Power Tools with Thread. Look at this. How fun. Everybody there. Thank you for sharing. They're holding up Norm and Nanette. So we've got a little coconut action there, checking out which ones they want to have for a drink. And oh my goodness, look at this. She is gorgeous, sharing the sarong there. So that looks like what Nanette's going to buy. This is so fun. Okay, so now they had to get Crocs because you cannot go to the Caribbean unless you buy Crocs. If you've ever been on a cruise, you know that. That's like, and everybody has them. They're spending another day on the beach. I love those blue beach umbrellas. So peaceful. So they had to get a taxi back to the ship, and the driver gave a thumbs up because he said Norm was a really good tipper. Look at that. So this was a 2-week back-to-back trip. So this is Becky's going on the second week. They are in the Western Caribbean. Here are some Jamaican dancers at the pier. So I think it's lovely. Everybody was very friendly and got in on the action with chatting with Norm and Nanette. And Nanette decided to get her hair braided. So there she is with the braids. And the shop ladies, they were helping pick him out. So they were helping pick out the hats for the gnomes. They're probably thinking, you crazy tourists. And they picked up something for baby Bob. Someone who loves you went to Jamaica and got me this shirt. Aw, so cute. And there they are, all the group outside again, shopping. Yeah, a lot of shopping, a lot of fun shopping. I like their teal shirts. They Cayman Islands. They met a pirate. So Norm was hanging out with the pirate there. Arr. They got to Cozumel, where they were just having a really great time. There's their ship behind them, the Celebrity Reflection. Cozumel. And of course, if you go to Cozumel, you have to stop at Senior Frogs. Well, you can probably stop at Senior Frogs at a lot of ports off of a cruise ship in the Caribbean. They got their hats. And then finally, here are Becky and her wonderful husband, Keith, who they are ready to get back on their flight to go home. Thank you, Becky and her husband, Keith, for doing this. This was just so much fun. It looks like everybody that you approached also had a good time and joined in. I love that. Love that. Everybody's on vacation, right? Having fun. All right, so we're going to go over and talk about the Harrisonburg quilt now. And there were, as of when I filmed this, a few kits at the Virginia Quilt Museum website for the quilt done in my sleepover fabric. They acquired a few kits from Benartex when they were doing the giveaway. They packaged up and were able to acquire a couple of them to sell. And so they are in the museum web store. Link is below in the description box. Now, they may be gone by the time you see this because there were only a few there. But if not, you might get one. Okay, let's go to the other side. We'll also be wrapping up over there. I wanted to take a minute and talk to you about the organization of your fabric for the Harrisonburg quilt along, because there's kind of two ways or more. There's kind of like a hybrid of the two ways that you could approach getting your fabric organized to work on making these blocks. So the Harrisonburg quilt at the Virginia Quilt Museum, the original quilt, is totally scrappy. Like, there's just a zillion different fabrics, and there is no fabric plan for the blocks. They're probably just made from, whatever the maker picked up, whatever she picked up. So Wendy did her quilt exactly like that. So here are some of Wendy's blocks. They're totally scrappy. Wendy was using a different fabric in every position of the block. Every position. The light in the background and the other images. They're all different fabrics. Now for mine, I have more controlled scrappy, so that well, it's just more controlled, really. It's not really scrappy. It's a controlled colorway, but they're built so that they just move and shift, and you don't see things so blocky and with it when they're finally together. So there's really totally random, like every fabric is different, to controlled colorway. And then you could do something in between. But first, let me just talk about these two. How do I get my hands so that you know what I'm talking about? A and B, scrappy and controlled. So it is hard for a pattern writer, me, Wendy, who wrote this pattern, any pattern writer, to write something when it's totally scrappy, and you might say you're going to just use 1 3-inch square of this fabric and that's it, and you need like 80 million fabrics. It's very hard to write a pattern and explain and write through that, but Wendy did an excellent job of doing this, because she's also telling you how to do it more controlled, like the version that I'm doing with my sleepover fabric. So first of all, let's take a look at the block, and then we'll take a look at the pattern and some of the text in the pattern, so that you can get a better idea, and you, well, not better, so you'll know how to approach your own fabric. Okay, so let's first just look at the block. So this is the block layout. Here's one in green, here's one in blue. I'm going to talk from the blue one. So in the blue one, there are components. There is a center, there is a background. Okay, so you can see that. Center, background. Then there's this middle fabric, which is giving this, you know, square and a square effect. And then there's the half square triangles on the outer edge. And so those are there's 4 components: background, fabric 1, fabric 2, fabric 3. And that's how it's written in the pattern. Background, fabric 1 is your center fabrics. Fabric 2 is what you will cut and then cross cut into big triangles. And then fabric 3, where you will make half square triangles. And so that is the progression of the pattern and how the colorways are done. Now, if you're doing totally scrappy, this would be different, this one would be different, this one would be different, this one would be different, and etc. So, you know, it would be just a chaos of beautiful, beautiful colors like Wendy's are. Mine are controlled. I'm using 3 fabrics and a background. Every one of my blocks will have the same background, all 30 of them. They all use the same background. So you may want to go with that plan. Then what I have is I have 5 of each set. So there are 5 blocks that look just like this. That will be, here we go, the magic of video. There are 5 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 blocks to do for each set of color. So when I do the green ones, there are 5 green ones like this, for a total of 6 different sets of blocks with 6 different color sets. Now I'm going to bring the video up here a second. So when you are over at my website on the project page, I am going to add in, I may have done that by the time you go now, add in some pictures of Wendy's blocks. You will see a full digital of my quilt and then a picture of the museum quilt. And you can click those so that you can get a little larger image. Then you can scroll in. If you're on your tablet or your phone, you could then scroll in if you want to look at things a little bit closer so that you can see what's going on. As I'm doing the blocks for the week, you know, well, my blocks are already done, but as I'm showing you the blocks for the week, because I'm going to do them in a row so they can be sewn together, you'll be able to see each of the patterns. Now, if you're doing this scrappy, you will just be collecting lots of lights and lots of whatever other colors you want to do. If you're going to do like Wendy, all kinds of blue fabric, then you would just have tons of blue, and you might want to repeat some. You may want to decide to do it sort of a mix. Let's say, what would a mix be? A mix might be that you use the same background like I did, but these are more scrappy. Maybe this and this are like similar, but then you make scrappy half square triangles out here. So that could be like a partial scrappy, like you want to go, okay, I want, in this block, I want all these 4 to be the same fabric. And then these will be different fabrics. Or you might just say, instead of having 5 identical blocks, each block will be totally different. So you might mix it up that way, so that you might have 5 blue blocks like this, but they are not identical fabrics. They are different sets of 3 fabrics each, plus the background. So that would be another way that you could approach doing this. And this is why, because of the nature of the original being all scrappy, we're not sort of channeling you anywhere with what you want to do with your fabric. This is a wonderful way to play around. Plus, you may not even be doing the big quilt. Like, a lot of people will support the museum by buying the pattern, and then you will be doing maybe a pillow with just 1, or you might do a table runner with 4 blocks. Maybe you're going to do a smaller wall hanging, maybe just 3 by 4 rows, something like that. So you are going to have your version of what you are working on, which is so exciting, and it gives you that creativity as you approach the project. Now, I want to give you a couple of tips on just looking at the pattern. So I have to cover up. I'm going to block over with a little image, so you know, because you need to buy the pattern, okay? Because you're supporting the museum, but I don't want to show you that part. But I will just show you that I highlighted. So I went ahead and highlighted background, the column heading, you know, fabric 1, which is the center, fabric 2, which is these pieces, this piece around the center, and then fabric 3, which are the corner half square triangles. And so that is how this pattern is laid out for the fabric orientation. And I think that once you have that in your head, you have that orientation, then you will be set, you're good to go, because basically you need to know where your color placements are and how you want to approach it. And that is the formula for it, is placement by position, where in the quilt, and then you might say, you might approach it like, I'm going to do all the centers, or I'm just going to make a bunch of half square triangles one day. I mean, you can approach it a whole lot of ways. You know me, I like to do a block. I like to see a block. I'm not one who wants to make a zillion half square triangles that I know will go into the quilt, but they're not in the quilt yet. That's sort of not my mode of operation. So I will be showing the blocks row by row for each week. But you could do them by different chunks. You could do them by sewing centers or by sewing half square triangles for a while, however you like to process a block. Somebody asked me about cutting in advance. I don't do that, so I really don't know what people do who like to cut in advance. I mean, you have the pattern, so if you have the pattern, you can do whatever you want at this point. You can already be sewing blocks if you want. You don't have to wait till the 14th. So, whatever works for you is how this quilt along is the best way to handle this quilt along. Now we will be doing, I'm going to put a picture of the quilt up while I'm talking. So we will be doing the rows. So there are what? 6 rows, right? Yeah, so there's 6 rows. And then there is a border. And then there are these little cornerstones. And so at some point while we're doing the rows, I'll talk about the cornerstones, and then I'll talk about the border blocks, because that is a bit more work. And some of you might just not do the border, and that's totally fine. You might just end it with the blocks. You might just say, doing the blocks is good. I don't need to do that border. I either won't have a border, or I'll add on a fabric border, and I don't need a piece border. But if you want to make it like the museum quilt, which both Wendy and I want for ourselves, you have to have the border. It's just one of those extra touches, going that extra step in your work, in your quilt, that brings it up to that next level. But there's certainly no reason you have to do it. You can easily leave it off and work just on the blocks. Now the little 9 patches that are in the cornerstones, those are so darling, and you really must do them. So you really must. So now that we've sort of walked through where the fabrics are, background 1, 2, 3. So background, fabric 1 is the center, fabric 2 is around the center, fabric 3 are the corner half square triangles. So you have this plan, so you can take your fabric now and start grouping it and looking at it and pairing them, like what would you want a block to look like. So this is what you might do. You might say, okay, I've got these 3 fabrics for a block, and that happens to be what this green block is these 3 fabrics. But you can go and say, well, I might do them in the order like you see here, but then I might do another block where the center's the light, and then this big print is here. I might do one where the small floral's the center, the big print's here, and the light's out here. I mean, you could switch them around, particularly if you're going to do 5 of them. You could make a couple variations, even just still using the same 3 fabrics, so that you wouldn't have them all placed identical. So, when we set out to do this, we wanted to give you a visual of 2 very distinct ways to approach this, but then talk about it where you can move and shift within those for color placement and fabric placement to make it your own. All right, that's a lot. I'm going to put this video on the project page for the Harrisonburg quilt at my I Love to Make Quilts website. That project page, I will have Wendy's picture, my picture of the digital picture of the full quilt. There will be the museum quilt, and then I will put this video. And then the video what we do on February 14th on Valentine's Day where we make a block, I will also put that video there so that those can all be on the project page and you can get to them. All right, so let's wrap it up. I am so happy to have you here, happy to have you joining for this Harrisonburg quilt along. Excited to have shared Norm's adventures with you. Norm and Nanette, sorry Nanette. Can't forget Nanette. So Nanette and Norm's adventures with Becky of Power Tools with Thread. So be sure to go visit Becky if you have any interest in using your machine to its optimum. You know, getting those functions out that you just aren't sure to use from your machines. Becky's the YouTuber to be watching. All right, I love you. Mwah. Thank you for being here in the Sloan Zone. I will see you online.